the star of Politically Incorrect, Bill Maher!
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. And I think the nation is breathing easier today because Ted Kaczynski is under 24-hour surveillance. As you know, he tried to kill himself with his underwear yesterday. So now they have him under surveillance, and they say that he probably has been suicidal for some time because a couple of weeks ago they found in his cell a self-addressed stamped envelope, which... Well, the funeral for Sonny Bono was today. I'm sure you saw it. It was covered everywhere on the news. It was a bizarre mix of people who came because of his life, because he was in show business and then politics. So you had the conservative Republican politicians from Washington and the weird liberal Democrats who were in show business came. It was kind of like this show with a corpse. Now, President Clinton is in Texas doing some fundraising and some education talking. To anybody from Texas, the great state of Texas? People just feel sorry for me, so they... Yeah, sure, I'll be from Texas for you, Bill. Well, this whole Paula Jones thing must have the president spooked in Texas because he would not come right out and say that he remembered the Alamo. He said he thinks they might have met, but nothing happened. Now, it was in the news today that last year, 1997, 26 journalists around the world were killed. Isn't that something? It is a dangerous world. 25 of them in bombings or shootings, and one of them fell out of a tree trying to get a shot of Brad Pitt's penis. That's... And finally, some sad news to report. Roseanne is getting divorced. I don't know what could have happened. Another one down, poor Roseanne. But I don't think she was that committed to this marriage, because this time the tattoo on her ass read occupant. All right, thanks for coming. It's all been satirized. Thank you. All right, welcome to the show. Let us meet our panel. She is a Cato Institute Research Fellow and a regular contributor to MSNBC, Jennifer Grossman. Hey, too sick to kiss you. Sorry, I don't want to do that. He is a motivational speaker and the best-selling author of It's Not Over Until You Win, Les Brown. Les, how are you, buddy? Good to see you. He is an actor, singer, and new kid on the block. His next movies are Body Count and The Taking of Pelham 123. Donnie Wahlberg. Hey, Donnie. Nice to see you. And finally, a multi-talented actor, writer, comedian. His next movie is Lifetime's Final Justice, Michael McKean.
Hey.
How are you?
Big glad to see you.
Glad to see you. All right. Well, we have been saving this issue until there was a ruling, and there was a ruling today. It was in the California Supreme Court about Marlene Corrigan. She was charged with felony child abuse because her daughter was 680 pounds and died. She got, I guess it was not felony she was charged with, misdemeanor child abuse. And she has been lambasted in some quarters. Other people have come to her defense and say, you know, why are you blaming this woman? But the question is, if you starved your kid to death, they certainly would blame you for this. What do you think about this? I mean, do you think you could feed your kid to death? And you're...
when my kids were very young, I made a pact that neither of them were to get over 500 pounds. That's it. It's an absolute, there's no argument. We're not going to even discuss this anymore. And they've been doing really well. Especially the 12-year-old.
Right, well... She was 13.
Yeah, I think that it's a very tragic situation, but I do think that the mother most certainly does share some responsibility in that, because she's the one that provides the groceries, the leadership, and she has the responsibility and the care of that kid. And to do that, even if the kid was defiant and you could not restrict their eating or try and get them to eat properly, she should have gotten some kind of help and assistance with that.
I mean, they always blame the mothers. It's always the mother's fault. What is she supposed to do? Bar the refrigerator, you know, or wire the kid's mouth shut?
See, obviously, what do you mean, what is she supposed to do? Be a mother.
You got a 600-pound kid, you know, it's going to overpower you pretty quickly.
Well, she must have, she
surprised.
obviously kept the refrigerator pretty stocked, though, so I think, you know, she could have done, obviously, something. You know, if she can afford to have that much food in the house. I mean, the girl was 680 pounds.
680?
Yeah, she couldn't move around that quickly. She could throw us some medicine and run.
Aren't you, I'm just kind of interested in what, it's kind of like, what were you thinking, Mom? You know, weren't there any red flags here ever? I mean, look, if you take the year that they're going to give her in jail and just sit and talk to her and ask her a lot of questions, maybe we'll learn something about, you know, denial or something. I mean, it's just...
But that's the question, is should this, we all say it's tragic, of course, but should she go to jail for this? Should this woman be held accountable? Is a parent guilty? Just the way she would be if the kid had no food. And you don't think so?
It's hard to say no.
I think that this kid was essentially committing suicide. I mean, she was eating herself to death. Kids do...
You know, kids don't commit suicide.
Oh, sure they do. You know,
kids, she was 13 when she died.
What about all of the anorexic women, that young women that die? I mean, you're going to put all of their mothers in jail, or all the kids that, you know, take drugs and overdose? I mean, you know, I think...
I would do it with, not happily and eagerly, but she should pay some price for it.
She paid a lot, all those grocery bills all over the years.
Huh? What do you say?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Well,
she contributed to that. She should pay some price
Contributed?
for it.
I mean, a parent in the home, shouldn't they be the law, the absolute law?
Yes.
I mean, like you said, it's some...
She was the law. You finish everything on that plate, or you're going to...
Everything in that fridge is what she'd say. No, it's so...
It's tough.
It's
tough,
easy to be silly about it, but it
I'd
really
drop my
is.
head and send her to jail.
Yeah.
I would send her to jail, too.
Yeah.
That's, I mean, because the kid was, when she was 7, she was 190.
Yeah. And it wasn't genetic or anything? I mean,
no, normal at birth. It was not a thyroid thing.
No. Just irresponsible.
Thank God she was normal at
parent.
birth. I mean, you know, if she was like 300 pounds at birth, it would have been extremely painful for the mother. You know?
We all would have heard about it 13 years ago, though.
National Enquirer.
But, I mean, now you're a libertarian. You think, so this is part of your let whatever happens, happen?
Live and let die. No, I mean, I get a little worried when all of a sudden we are collectively each other's mothers and parents. You know, yes, she should have done a better job, but if you start going down that road, then, you know, we're going to be telling everybody.
Take the other end of the spectrum.
Right.
But starving a child to death is using force. I mean, this woman wasn't sitting there, at least as I know, like stuffing Cheetos down her mouth. You know, the kid does bear some responsibility herself.
At 13.
Yeah.
And when you're 7 years old and you're 190, I don't know whether this was a really normal childhood.
As a culture, we say, okay, it's all right, fat is beautiful, you know, nobody should be too thin. All of these fashion magazines are giving people the wrong message. I mean, there's this whole movement of fat acceptance. Maybe we as a culture should say, no, fat is not beautiful. It is not okay
right.
for you
There is a group called Fat Acceptance. In fact,
yeah, Fat So.
Fat So. Get it? Yeah. Fat So.
So what?
And they came to the defense of the mother. And I don't understand how come we do that with fat, but we don't do it with any other...
The daughter died. It's not like she's just fat and got picked on at school. She died. I mean, what are you defending? You're defending a girl who died of obesity. There's no defense.
Okay, we have to take a break. We'll come back.
Los Angeles area and would like free tickets to Politically Incorrect, call 213-852-2655.
All right, we're talking about parental supervision, how far I should go. What do you think about this? They now want to rate rock concerts. Now, of course, there are ratings on albums now. There weren't when we were kids, but you're in Spinal Tap. You had a...
Kind of a cracker's hat.
Huge group. Now, because Marilyn Manson and so forth, people who... he does tear up Bibles. He wipes his ass with the American flag. He tells kids Dr. Seuss is not an MD. I don't know what he does. But
Nothing Noel Coward didn't do years ago.
Noel Coward. But they want to actually rate a concert. Do you think that's cricket?
Yes, I think they should rate them, because I think not only just concerts, rap shows, a variety of other shows, because of the fact that there are shows where people have actually performed sex on stage. In one particular performance of a rap artist, a girl went on stage and perform oral sex on the artist. And I think that parents should have an idea of what kind of event their child is going to, so that they can say, hey, I want you to go, or I need to go with you, or I don't want you to go to that event.
I was going to disagree with you. The oral sex put me over the top. Not for the first time, I might add. No, it's interesting. I'm old enough to remember when Phil Oakes played Carnegie Hall and said the bull word. And there was like an editorial in Variety in the following week. This has gone too far. These kids today.
Yeah.
And this was 1963.
But Jim Morrison in the 60s did sexual acts on stage.
Yeah, but you can't, you really can't. First of all, it's live. It's not like, I mean, the spontaneity of it all, I mean, how can you really rate that? You don't know. You could go to a New Kids on the Block concert. I mean, I was in supposedly the most wholesome group in the world, and I mean, you would expect us to have a G rating at the time, but I mean, it got R from time to time.
Really?
Oh, yeah, sure.
What did you do that would
well,
get
you know,
an R?
just, you know.
But really, I mean, I can't imagine what the New Kids on the Block would do that would be...
Oh, just the new kids, not the nude kids. That would be...
Well, there was different things, but I mean, you know, it's...
Different things is vague. What would they do?
Well, we're drifting away from the subject.
No, we're not. We're getting right to the subject.
Zeroing
I'm serious. I'm not trying to embarrass you,
demonstration?
but what did they do? What did you do that would be an R rating that you did?
Well, you had, you know, basically teenage guys on stage, 19, 20-year-old guys, and you had, you know, a lot of our fans were really young, you know, 11, 10, 9. So stuff that's appropriate for 21, 19, 20, 21-year-olds is not necessarily...
Language, you're talking
language, you know, different little gestures, body movements, pelvic thrust.
Pelvic. All right, now I understand.
You know, but think about it. I mean, who are these people that are coming up with these regulations? I mean, these are the same parents that were doing acid and running around naked when they were listening to their favorite bands, and now they want to spoil all of our fun.
I think it's a kind of a long goodbye. It's kind of a long goodbye.
Like you're going to a Marilyn Manson concert. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing also. I mean, if you know what Marilyn Manson's doing on a record, and they're rating the record, you think he or she is going to do something different in concert? You know, you think he's praising the devil on record? You think he's going to, you know, do something different? I mean, you should know if it's going to be generally consistent with what's on the record.
But then, when you consider the fact that parents are not listening to the music, that if they know what kind of
parents' problem. You know what I mean? But the parents should do a better job.
But we're not talking about screening. We're not talking about preventing. All we're talking about doing is letting parents have some idea of what kind of concert that their child is going to, what they might possibly be exposed to.
Well, if the child is that young, right, I understand.
Priorities. Here, you know, we're sending our kids to schools where they're getting shot at, where they're getting beaten up, shaken down for drug money, and then you say, well, you can't go to the LA Forum where you've got 500 security guards and a metal detector at every door.
Well, maybe we should rate the schools too.
Yeah, well, I'd be in favor of that.
I just think it's a way of kind of, you're growing up, but we want to do a little more parenting before you're all the way out of the way. And if we make it so that there's ratings on concerts, that kind of, we have our fingers in your pie.
I really think if parents are in tune with their children and involved in their lives and involved, you know, being really good parents and are really involved, it's not, they know what's going on. They know what the kids are listening to.
By what you just said, they don't, because parents would probably say, New Kids on the Block, well, sure, go to that one. I mean, we'd rather have you go to that than anything else.
But then,
until Michael Jackson started grabbing himself, didn't you? Everyone kind of thinks.
Yeah, and then he started grabbing, you know, other things. You know, but you know,
it's not himself that he's grabbing that people are worried
about. That's not what we're worried about.
There were certain lines in his performance that got crossed over and over again, so that, you know, people would still.
Jennifer, would you say that the pendulum has swung a little? I mean, that we're living in a time where anything goes?
Well, to an extent, but, you know, think of some of these bands. I mean, you know, if you're going to have these R ratings, a group like Hanson is going to be banned from playing at its own concert.
No, we're not talking about banning
These are like kids that are 16 years old.
We're just saying let the parents know what kind of concert that they're going to be perhaps exposed to.
Who's on the review board?
That's all. That's all we're saying. Let parents have some indication of what's going on.
But how do we compile this information? I mean, what board
is
going to sit?
Who's the man?
Yeah, that's what I want to say.
Okay, I'm sorry, I have to take a commercial. We'll come back. Okay. All right, I don't know if you're watching TV today at all, but if you were watching TV today at all you saw was the funeral of Sonny Bono. And I love Sonny. He was on our show recently. I mean, I'm not knocking him, but haven't we lowered the bar a little bit about what funerals are? You know,
This
I mean,
is kind of a great crossover funeral, though, because it's show business, but there's a flag on the coffin. So you got government, you got kind of like we see John, but we also see, you know,
Cher.
Yeah, Cher, exactly. And she actually said, that Sonny made us the most beloved couple of our generation. Which was kind of, you know, some pretty good horn tooting there for a funeral.
Yeah. I don't know, I think it was sort of a guilt funeral in a way, because people were so mean to him. You know, everybody made fun of him when he was alive, and now that he's dead,
She actually said, Cher actually said, people thought that Sonny was a short man. You know, I must admit, I was laboring under that same...
Well,
but I think it says a lot about television that there's no level that's too low for television stations to look at trying to get ratings. If it's a funeral, whatever it is, somebody getting out of prison who was in there for a situation where his wife is shot by a young girl that he was with, he gets out of prison, they pick him up in a Rolls Royce and they have a party for him. They film that. They make this guy a celebrity. I mean, there's no level that's too low, which says a lot.
Did you make that up, or is that like a real thing?
That's Buddy Foucault. What's the guy's name?
Oh.
Joey Buddy
Joey.
Foucault.
That's right. Again, it's a show business crossover.
Talk about, you know, elevating the level of discourse.
I mean, they just, I mean, it's just, I used to have a talk show, and I remember when they told me, said, hey, look here, the lower it is, the sleazier, the more people are going to look and watch.
Yeah, but
right.
it's
That's
a little
called
bit...
the Jerry Springer Show.
Yeah.
But we're not talking about tabloid TV here. We're talking about, this was covered on CNBC, on CNN,
Speaker of
as
the
if
House
he
was
was
there.
Winston Churchill.
Yeah.
This was like a state's funeral for a shaper of the century. I mean, he was a nice man, but he was a freshman congressman who had 2 hits. And I just
Well,
don't understand.
I mean, you know, think of the 3 funerals that got a lot of coverage: Diana, and Michael Kennedy, and Sonny Bono. I mean, they all had in common the fact that they crashed. If he had died of natural causes in his sleep, I don't think we would have been having, you know, this.
I think this funeral being televised had a lot more to. It was strictly about who was there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It was a slow news day.
It's silly. It's disgusting. You know what I mean? No one aired it because Sonny Bono was this huge,
even
important man. You know,
really,
they did it because they wanted to see. You know, they wanted to get maybe a shot like at Versace's funeral of Elton John crying, or maybe Newt Gingrich would be crying or something. I mean, it's just silly. It's silly.
But I think Jennifer made a point that had he died in sleep is different than going out with a bang.
Unless he died in sleep with, you know,
but I think you're
somebody
right.
else.
It's who you can get at your funeral.
Exactly.
And I mean, even in death, they did not give him much respect, because I kept seeing on the news yesterday, Sonny Bono died, but they showed Cher coming through the airport, and then they showed the tree he hit. So it was like Cher, the tree, and then
third billing.
And then they got to him.
I don't know how much they publicized the Michael Kennedy's death here, but I was on the East Coast. Well, I was on the East Coast during the funeral and all that stuff, and it was just clips of the rest of the Kennedys.
Yes.
You know, they wanted to get a clip of John crying or whatever. I mean, it's just, you know, they were ripping Michael Kennedy apart a few months ago for the other thing that happened with him, and now, you know, it's all about who's there. It's all about who they can get on film, you know, in this moment for, you know, future assemblage reels for CNN or, you know,
also
whatever.
a little bit of the contrast. You know, here you've got this celebrity from Hollywood, and he's a Republican. You know, everybody said, oh my God, I can't believe that somebody from the entertainment industry would be a Republican. But that, you know, people should have been tipped off years ago when he named his daughter Chastity. Who but a Republican would come up with, you know, chastity for...
I thought it was custody. Are you sure?
All right. Okay. We have to take a break with you.
Join us Monday when our guests will be Eugene Levy, Arianna Huffington, Dick Morris, and David Allen Greer.
Okay. Now, Jennifer, you mentioned he went into show business as a Republican. Like, that's a weird thing. Everybody I ever heard of who was in show business and then went into politics is a conservative Republican, beginning with Reagan, right? George Murphy.
Fred